already, 15 minutes late? Might as well do another 5.
13, technically.
I don't think Candace ever believes me when it's like, I'm like, this never fucking starts on time.
What? What's the obsession with starting on time?
Because when you schedule something for 7, it should start at fucking 7.
That's
how the fucking world works. That's why you schedule it. If you want to start at 7:20, schedule it at 7:20.
Starts when I hit the button.
He's drunk with power.
Yeah. That's why he wants to get this soundboard going.
We are live, I believe.
Are we live?
Okay, I'm ready.
Pretty sure. Gene, we're live. We can't set tick. Okay, we actually are live. It started with that. Okay. Hey everyone. Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock is over and has been since 1984, but we are just getting started here on Live Long and Podcast. I'm Dave Mader, coming at you with Star Trek TV and movie reviews. We are here streaming live on our Facebook page at Live Long and Podcast. You also may be watching on our YouTube channel or listening to us on the audio version. Welcome to all of you, present and future. We're kind of in a lull here since Star Trek Picard's finished its first season. Discovery's going to be picking up in a few weeks. And so we're going to be covering all the Star Trek movies. This is the third in that series. You can go back and see our coverage or listen to our coverage of Star Trek The Motion Picture and Star Trek The Wrath of Khan. Hey, let's talk about this movie. I'm joined by a fabulous panel today. Oh, what a panel do we have to cover Star Trek 3. First and foremost, I'm joined today by my lovely wife, Jane. Say hello, Jane.
Hello, can you hear me?
The first officer of podcasting.
The first officer of the number one of podcasting, you could say. Of course, here, where are you now, Jody? You're in the bottom right-hand corner. The ever salty Jody Simpson. Say hello, salty.
Hello.
And we have the here in the top right-hand corner of your screen, the ever incredulous Kevin Millard. Hey, Kevin. And in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen is my brother Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Yo ho.
Yo ho. And a bottle of rum. Okay, so let's talk about this film. Overall, I gotta say, better than I thought. Although maybe could have been better. And probably if you consider that 2, 3, and 4 are a trilogy, I know we're going to be talking about 4 next week. Probably the weakest of this trilogy, I would say. So let's maybe get some opinions around the group. Jane, if you don't mind, we'll start with Kevin on this one.
I thought you were going to say me.
This movie is so bad that right after this one, we watched number 4. After this movie, we were talking about number 4, not about this movie.
Okay.
It's awful. I hate it's basically Lord of the Rings on the planet. They're just walking around aimlessly doing nothing, touching fingers, and it's just weird. The whole thing with Savick and Spock is just gross and weird.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Go on.
Well, I've got other specific things. But,
okay. Well, hey, that's not. We won't go through them all at once. Maybe. Okay. Let's move it to Jody. Jody, what did you think of this movie?
Watching this movie for the first time in like 10 years, I would say that it's not as bad as I remember it, but it is as exactly what Kevin has said. It's the filler movie. It's like the shit in the good sandwich. So it's like,
is it like the vegetables?
It's like a shit sandwich, but like the two things of bread are nice.
Right.
2 and 4 are good.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 just it's certainly not to the caliber of the first one. That is just a shit show, as we already know.
Mm-hmm.
But it is definitely, if you're going to call this the trilogy, which I still don't stand by, but everybody else seems to, this is definitely the weakest one for sure. This is Two Towers.
This is okay. I don't like any of the Lord of the Rings movies, but I know that the Two Towers is the worst one. Let's go to Jeff. Jeff, high level thoughts having watched this film.
I got to tell you guys, it's boring. It's really boring.
Very boring.
There's too much Klingon being spoken. The audience doesn't need that much. They should have dialed it back on the Klingon.
I thought I was watching an episode of Taxi.
Great Scott, Jody. Christopher Lloyd was making this movie probably around the same time he was making the original Back to the Future. So imagine he was going back and forth between one of the best movies ever made of all time and this movie. and like Kevin, like you, I also had to put on 4 right after I finished this movie, just to feel right. I felt dirty.
I see. Well, there's Commander Crew, Christopher Lloyd. Okay, Jane, what do you think of Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock?
I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed it. I think I've seen it in the last 10 years. I've watched it a couple times. So it's comfortable.
Voluntarily?
I don't know. I knew a lot of the lines. So I just, I'm not saying it's the best movie in the world, but I enjoy it.
Okay, let's get it. Let's recap this film because you know what? I feel like it gets a lot of heat that maybe it doesn't deserve. I can see the boring argument. If you just feel like it's a dull affair, like okay, sure. I can see that maybe that it's not the most exciting. Although there's some great things in this film that I think get overlooked. So this movie was made for $17 million in 1984 and ended up grossing $87 million at the box office. So it was a success. Obviously, they kept making more of these afterwards. So, it definitely feels like they're kind of harping on the success of Wrath of Khan, maybe a little too much, maybe not putting enough original content in. Like the movie starts off all with a recap of what's happened in Wrath of Khan, which, is why I look at this as a trilogy.
So 2.5 minutes of non-original footage, and then another 3 minutes of credits.
Yeah.
2 minutes and 23 seconds to be precise.
I like the credits. I think I like seeing their names, and it's slow, and it's like, oh yeah, them. I'm a fan of the credits.
Ever the optimist.
Somehow, all that is more entertaining than the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Okay. So Harv Bennett wrote this movie. Harv Bennett was the producer who came in for Star Trek 2 and is largely responsible for sort of the reinvigoration of the Star Trek movie franchise, the original series movies. I think he was involved in the story in the first movie as well, and for a few that came after this. So I just don't know if like writing the story or like what the beat for beat would be is like his strongest thing, or if this movie would have done better by having like Nicholas Meyer involved, who was like the director of the first movie versus like a first-time director in Leonard Nimoy. But
the director of the first movie?
The director of Star Trek 2.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah,
okay.
of Wrath of Khan, who later went on to direct The Undiscovered Country as well, which are considered to be like two of the best of the Star Trek movies. Or probably, the best of these 6, I would say, and maybe of all the movies. So arguably, so I think that there's some things I like about this, but it feels like a muted down version compared to like 2 and 4. The score here is also done by James Horner, but it's just not as impactful as the Wrath of Khan's score by far.
It had no effect on me. I can remember.
Just sorry to interrupt, but do you guys realize that you're literally talking about all the credentials of the movie and not the actual movie? That's how bad this movie is. There's nothing to talk about with this movie. That you're not even bringing up the most cringy part of this movie is when Kirk's son dies. Is probably one of the worst acted scenes I've ever watched in a movie. And
the worst thing about this is we're following the movie where you see Kirk watch Spock die, and he actually gives you some of the best acting he's ever done. And then we literally go completely opposite to the cringiest. I agree.
Well, okay, yeah. Like I guess maybe why did I start with all the credentials of the movie? Because the credits are 2 minutes and 23 seconds, and all I had to do was sitting there making notes for that time. So I was just like, okay, well, Oh yeah, Harv Bennett wrote this movie. Oh yeah, okay, James Horner's back, but this music's not hitting me the same way. And I think the music does make a huge difference to these movies. Even with the same guy. But let's talk about the actual movie itself. So after this whole recap, we kind of get caught up on what's happened in the last movie. Starts out with the captain's log from Kirk. He's feeling uneasy. He says that a lot of his trainee crew, I guess, have left since their battle with the Reliant. So they're kind of headed back to Earth. And, he's just really sad. He's really sad. Spock's died. It's kind of he's in mourning. That's where we kind of start. We get like sort of the just some stuff on the Enterprise. There's an exchange with Scotty. He talks about being a miracle worker and whatever. Did you ever?
I like that part.
Did anyone think it was weird with the scene with the cadet? The cadet's like, "Hey, Admiral, are we gonna get a hero's welcome when we get home?"
Yeah. So here's I have a take on that real quick, and I'll let you guys give your take as well. When he does that, the cadet is all like, "Are we gonna get a hero's welcome?" And then all I thought was like, whoever wrote this movie was like, we have to set up Kirk for like. Every line, every line, and they just don't understand what Kirk's going through. Like all the rest of the crew would just be like I don't know, just really poor writing, in my opinion. That line specifically. So that's why I had to take.
You hear that line and you're instantly going, "Oh well, here comes some over fucking acting." Like it's literally like a cue point for overacting.
Yep.
He's like, "Well, we should," or whatever he says.
We paid for our dearest blood.
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
yeah, he says. Yeah,
very Shakespeare-ish.
I just thought that was weird. Like just that whole like.
It's awkward.
Yeah, is that what you do to impress the Admiral? Come on, buddy. And then
I got a question. Why was Saavik not there? Why was she left on the planet? Was she not a cadet?
She was a cadet, and we see in this uniform, this movie, she's in a white turtleneck. So I guess she's graduated from the academy now, and she's a full officer. On their way home from the battle? Well, that's what's weird, yeah, is that they said, okay, so Saavik and David went off this way after the battle, after all this stuff. Yeah, exactly. So she's... Why? What? Aside from it being a different actress, she's been upgraded to like a full officer.
But that's what happened to the other cadets who went off the Enterprise. They got positions.
Yeah, so exactly. So it's not that part's not. Yeah, but she was a cadet. That's what that red turtleneck means, and the white is like command.
Yeah. I think the actress that plays Saavik in this movie is actually better than Terry Hatcher, but I think the movie would have did better had Terry Hatcher been in this movie. That's how weird like the turnaround is for me.
Terry Hatcher.
Terry Hatcher.
No, not Terry Hatcher. Kirstie Alley. I always mix up those names. Kirstie Alley. Yes. I think Kirstie Alley is a worse actress than this actress.
I think Robin. It's Robin, right? Robin Curtis. Robin Curtis. I think Robin Curtis as a half Vulcan, half Romulan does a better job than Kirstie Alley. But I think Kirstie Alley physically looks better as that character. You know what I mean? Like it's just the long hair thing is what pisses me off the most about this entire situation.
Yeah, the whole
it's too rough. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get you. I don't know. Like, obviously, she's not as strong as Kirstie Alley was in the role. Like, that's pretty clear.
Well, apparently I was actually reading this because I was trying to figure out why she wasn't in the other movie, and she actually cleared it up in 2015. What it was is she wanted her agent asked for more money because she's going to be on screen more, right? Which was kind of logical. According to the producers say she was asking for 10 times what DeForest Kelley was going to get.
Wow.
But if you think about it, DeForest Kelley, how much do we see him in this movie?
More than her, I'd say.
You do definitely see her more, or see him more for sure.
More than Uhura.
He's more important.
Uhura literally like disappears, and then like at the end, it's like, oh, by the way, there's Uhura. You know?
Yeah. Why is she there? Why was the rendezvous Vulcan? What other job did she have to do on Vulcan?
Just meet up there. She wasn't going on the crazy mission with the rest of them. Yeah, it took me a while to realize. I'm like, Uhura's not he's not here.
Yeah, she's not, literally, she's not. Yeah,
like she could have beamed over with the rest of them. There was no reason she couldn't. But she's left behind for this one. just in terms of the movie, like we get the whole introduction of Christopher Lloyd's character, Commander Krug, I believe is his name, and the introduction of the Bird of Prey. This is the introduction of that ship that will be used a ton through Star Trek after this point. So we saw the new Klingons in Star Trek 1, but they were still in those old D7 style battle cruisers with the the gray ones with the big long neck. And now this is like the new green, fast ship. We see the cloaking device used kind of for the first time.
Which apparently isn't all that interesting because literally Kirk's looking through the viewfinder and he's like, oh, they're right there.
Yeah, you can see them.
It's not that good of a cloak, I guess.
Couldn't be that good of a cloak if Kirk can see it with the fucking bare eyes.
And the whole idea of what the how the Klingon ship looks in this movie is because the Romulans and the Klingons they traded technology around the time of the original series, and so cloaking devices went to the Klingons, and then and so you also see this more Romulan inspired design with the Klingon ships in this movie, starting with this movie. So I don't know. So did anyone find a version of this file or this movie with subtitles? Because it was a big fight for Jane and I.
I have a.
Oh, what with the Klingons, translation?
Yeah,
it was.
I downloaded a couple and I got some subtitles. I looked online and found some subtitles. Downloaded those. It's nothing. Nothing.
I have a version, but I have a separate subtitle file.
I do too. I had to turn it on.
I downloaded a couple subtitle files, but nothing still. I got English.
Of course, all of us have legal copies of this.
This is all legal.
Please don't sue.
Yes. And we ended up getting it from where did we end up?
I have the DVD copy, Jody, and I just ripped it onto my computer.
Yeah, I don't. I have an illegal copy, but I own the movie, so.
I've bought
Paramount or whoever
probably 12 times in my life. So
I've bought all those movies at least 4 times now.
Okay, so I don't know. This is where it started to get boring. This whole scene where they get the plans for the Genesis and
it started to get boring at the beginning.
Did anybody else notice that they took out Carol Marcus in the YouTube video, and it's Kirk saying exactly the same line?
Yeah, I guess they didn't want to pay that actor.
Yeah. But not only that, but he's recapping to send to them. But if he's already on his way there, why wouldn't he just wait and tell them in person? That doesn't make any fucking sense. It's that was convenient for the Klingons to
because exposition. They need to learn about this thing and whatever.
It's just lazy writing.
Right.
But anyway.
So we go to Kirk and the Enterprise. They're limping their way home. They kind of get to the space dock. We see the space dock for the first time. And that's kind of fun. We see them going to this huge space station, and then we see Excelsior in there.
The first time we saw the space dock?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was in Wrath of Khan.
No, they don't leave. No, not this space. They leave us. They leave a dock, but they don't leave this one.
I know they leave the shipyards and stuff, but I thought never mind. Anyway, all right. It could be a little bit too much of that. Anyway, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Did you like that part where they go, the Excelsior, the great experiment, it's got transwarp drive, and Scotty's like, yes, and if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a wagon.
Which didn't really make any sense to me. He's a fucking engineer in Starfleet. Wouldn't he be excited about this? It's a new technology for him. Man. What's that?
He's also a grumpy old man now.
I think he's just calling his grandma fat.
Well, I think we were just setting it up so that way we knew we could fuck with it later, right?
Isn't he just kind of calling his grandma fat in that?
Maybe.
Is that what he's doing?
But the big thing about that ship is literally, there's that new Excelsior, blah, blah, blah. It's that ship's going to save your fucking ass a couple times later on. Undiscovered country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sulu.
Yeah. Well, Sulu, exactly, yeah.
Oh, my.
Oh my.
Oh my.
This is where we get Chekhov detects something in Spock's quarters too, and it runs down, and we get this incredible Leonard Nimoy impression from DeForest Kelley. At least that's what I've always thought it is. It's not really Leonard Nimoy.
I wouldn't use incredible, but all right.
Okay, should we talk about that a little bit in this movie? That this movie's missing a significant piece, and that is Spock. And I think it's like ripping Data or Riker out of TNG. Like you're ripping like the B character, the secondary character, out of the story.
Yeah,
and the most popular Star Trek character.
I said this to Ashley after we were done watching. I said they took out Spock and replaced him with a whiny teenager. That pretty much sums up this movie.
That's a great review.
Yeah, well, like I guess, yeah, like because Spock's main role often is just give Kirk like the solution, right? He's the Raffi to Picard.
Well, I think he's also supposed to be like the conscience of him to a degree as well. Like he's the logical kind of the reasoning behind the madness,
Right, and he doesn't have that here, but. Yeah, like I don't know, like you don't have that dynamic, right? Like Kirk relies on him. Usually Spock's the one coming up with the smart thing to do. He's like the Sherlock Holmes kind of a character. The one who's
and then the doctor shows up on the bridge every so often.
It tells the Spock that he's an idiot or
your Vulcan mind. But this is where we first
green-blooded alien.
Where they first realized like there's something not right with McCoy, right? Like there's something wrong with McCoy, and I don't know. It's kind of brushed over because the next thing we know, they're kind of saying, okay, well, the Enterprise is Scotty, you've been promoted. You're going to go over to Excelsior, and the Enterprise is going to probably get decommissioned and shut down. And it's 20 years. It's more than 20 years old, but that's neither here nor there at this point. And time to hang them up. And I don't know. So I feel like that kind of takes away from the fact that they blow up the ship later in the movie. It's sort of like it's sort of an old ship. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It still had impact, I thought. Seeing it go blaze across the sky.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I know I'm jumping around here, but the scene that really jumps out to me in this movie is Uhura telling the guy to get in the closet with your phaser.
Well, yeah. So that guy. Well, that's during the whole heist part.
She's
but
creepy too because she's like, "I'll have him eating out of my hands."
Yeah.
What did that mean?
And the guy's like,
was that?
"Closet right here. I'll just get in here. I'll be over there and don't shoot me." Okay.
Yeah, this guy, this lieutenant that's with her in that scene, he's like the preppy dick from every 80s like movie. He'd be like the 80 preppy bully guy.
This is the 80s movie.
I know, but they just get that guy. He's
like they walk down the street to Ridgemont High, the Ridgemont High movie, Fast Times, and just be like, "Hey, we need you for a scene where you gotta be scared of Uhura," and just
like he's right out of some B horror movie or like Valley Girl or something like that. The
impression I got was kind of like Uhura wasn't really invited, but she showed up on set one day, and they're like, we'll put you in there.
Actually, I think that this movie
guy will make a scene.
I think that Uhura, like the little bit she's in this, I think she's pretty good, but like she doesn't have much to do. Other than that,
that's like saying
other than to get something to eat out of her hand. But I'd say with Uhura, like they're kind of missing her dynamic on with the group.
So they don't have Uhura, they don't have Spock.
Spock, and we have this new Savick that no one likes. And
they should have called this the Search for the Cast.
Who is also super fucking sanctimonious. When she gives him shit for using proto matter, and she says, "How many have to die for your
impatience?"
Whatever? Yeah. Who died because he used proto matter? Who? How many people? Exactly zero. 0 people.
Yeah. Right, because
zero.
He used proto matter.
Well, I guess only Spock had to die, but that was only because Khan tried to steal it, and that wasn't exactly his fault.
It wasn't because he used proto matter. You can't.
Well, we already covered the fact that Spock didn't have to die. He just didn't put the Sam suit on.
He didn't really have to, no. But
just another reason to hate her.
Why did they want to go back? Why did Kirk says in this scene where they say we're shutting down the Enterprise? He says, "Well, we wanted to go back to Genesis." Why did he want to go back to Genesis?
He probably wants to go see the son that he never knew he had.
Or he never really talked to, at least.
Yeah. Does he even have a scene with his son in this movie?
No.
No.
Yeah.
He dies before he even gets there.
Okay. Mistake, maybe like in the writing process here, maybe like, isn't that like, if you're gonna have him have this emotional response to his son dying.
Well, and that's the thing. Like the emotional response is insane. He's like, they killed him, and it's like you've known him for like fucking 20 minutes. What are you bitching about?
Well, I don't know. Like, how would you react if your son was killed, even if you didn't know him?
Well, they
The
could have
son
had
that I've only known for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. The audience.
Yes,
doesn't know
even that
Like,
son.
yeah, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some sort of mourning or pissed off or something, but there was a bit too much overgoing there. It's like it was just to set him up to, because he hates the fucking Klingons now.
They should have had like a scene at the beginning of the movie, just a 2-minute quick web chat between him and his son. Like that would have set it up a little bit, but there was nothing.
We got a comment here, Andrew Bolton. He's saying, right now you're making me want to watch my favorite undiscovered country.
I completely agree with Andrew 150%.
Although
that is the best Star Trek fucking movie of the original series.
He did say that this movie was one of his faves.
It should be his fave.
I mean Star Trek 3. He was referring to, I think, to Star Trek.
Oh, this
3.
is one of his faves? Oh.
Yeah. It's not one of my faves, but I think it's
a high regard for him before this.
I think it's better than these three, at least. Jane and I think it's better than. So we're a little outnumbered
Star
here.
Trek, like it's not the best movie, but it's still.
Come on, that's just what I'm always saying, Andrew. Come on, Jody.
Yeah.
Also, at the beginning of the fourth movie, Saavik says, "I didn't have time to tell you about your son," and then says, "He saved Spock. He saved us all." Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
She actually says almost those exact words to him in this movie.
She did, yeah. Oh no! Well,
so she obviously did have time to tell him.
Well, that was the mistake of Voyage Home, and we'll get to that next week. But yes, this movie got problems for much different reasons.
Yeah, that wasn't the biggest
Mostly,
one.
it's just boring. It's the Downton Abbey of Star Trek.
I love Downton Abbey. It's an awesome show.
Nothing ever happens.
That's amazing.
Sits around and talks. It's nothing.
Downton Abbey. I always think of the scene, and I think it's in Iron Man 3 when Happy gets like blown up by like the explosion of the Chinese theater, and Iron Man walks into the hospital room. He's like, "Put on Downton Abbey." He likes it because it's elegant.
In between, we get this scene with Krug. He's kind of learning about what Genesis is. Do you remember this scene where he's watching like the video recording?
He's watching the fucking report that
with his two guys. Okay, why did he have to kill his girlfriend? But these two numbskulls are allowed to listen to the.
Why couldn't he transport her out?
Why couldn't he transport her out? Why did he have to kill it? It's just to show how bad of a guy he is.
No, because she's like, "I love you," or
I love you, and you will die with honor, and I'll remember you always. And
the worst thing about this, well, not just this scene, but basically everything to do with Christopher Lloyd in this movie. I love Christopher Lloyd. He's literally one of my favorite actors. Okay, but this movie is fucking terrible with him in it. Like, he does not add anything to it. He's the least scariest Klingon ever.
Yeah.
Like you're literally like, they should have just made a plushie out of him. Like,
well, he's just kind of a ruthless, mean guy.
He's ruthless.
He's still the best part of this movie.
Well, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
So do you think it's kind of like just a pale imitation of number 2? Like, you're still talking about Genesis. You've got this this one bad Kirk and this one baddie, but he's no Ricardo Montalban. So that's why it's just.
I bet you. I bet you in the pitch meeting for this, Jane, it was probably, okay, well, Wrath-the-Con we did really well on that. We made a lot of money. What should we do? Well, let's do Wrath-the-Con 2.
Yeah,
we'll call it 3, and we'll bring back Spock because he wants to direct. So, we'll do that.
That's kind of the essence.
The pitch meeting was.
And we need another villain like Ricardo Montalban, who's a great actor right now. Let's get Christopher Lloyd, and we'll make him a Klingon.
Yeah, somebody who's recognizable from TV.
Because he would have been known for Taxi at this point, and he hadn't done
Taxi and
Back to the Future hadn't happened. One Flew Over the
Back to the
Cuckoo's
Future
Nest
hasn't been out yet. Yeah,
was earlier,
but he's in that as well. Like that's
I can't remember
which one. Sorry,
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Christopher Lloyd's
in that. Yeah,
Christopher Lloyd's in that. Like I don't know how big of a star he was at this time, but I guess
I don't think he was as huge as he was post Back to the Future, but
well known.
Still there.
Yeah, right.
Wrath-the-Con was shit. See. I love Andrew. Andrew makes perfect sense to me.
Andrew.
Like, I don't
Did you watch the previous episode?
I don't. Okay, watch our podcast last week.
Wrath of Khan is not nearly as good as everybody says it is.
But it's not shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was
Better
shit.
than
That's
this
probably
movie.
a little far. This is shit.
You know what I wish we had done at the beginning of this is rank all our movies.
Well, we will after this is over. But
yeah, but I'd like to see the difference between what we thought at the beginning versus after
I
watching
always-
them all, and if we're going to change any
Actually,
opinion.
that would have been a good
Before
idea,
we
Jane.
did this, I
Yeah.
always thought that 3 was the worst, but 1 is
See,
the worst.
Now
I'm
we
with
all
you on this
realize,
because
yeah.
I thought 3 and 5 were the worst of the 2 movies. Then I watched the first one again. Then I decided that was garbage until I got to 3. Then I've decided 3 is still better than 1.
it
Yes.
still is.
Yeah.
We all agree on
But
that. I
If
think.
my memory serves me correctly, 5 is still absolute garbage. So we'll see.
5's the worst movie.
Oh,
5 is the
5
shit
is-
filling and the rest of the good movie sandwich.
you think 5 is worse than 1?
I think 5's the worst movie,
I'm-
period. I don't think 5, like, it's so bloody boring. It's so bad, 5. I can't, I put it on for 10 minutes. I can't even watch it. Motion picture is at least so bad, you're curious. You're like, how did this get made? How much money was spent on this? What? I gotta keep watching this. What
Well,
are
we
these
know how that one got made.
uniforms?
Right. Well, we're gonna be talking about that in 2 weeks with 5. So let's
Yeah, that's true.
let's not.
And then we
spoil
can
that
finally
one.
get to a good movie.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But I guess the only thing with this whole, like, with Christopher Lloyd and his character, and does he have, like, motivations in this movie? Like, the fact that, like, Genesis has this idea, this torpedo that can rearrange a planet, and that this has, like, sort of like these galactic political fallout consequences. And can you sympathize with what
I have to ask a
Christopher
question
Lloyd's
here.
character is doing? But
So
yeah.
when they were originally talking about Genesis, they're like, okay, well, we can terraform the planet by using the Genesis device, blah, blah, blah. Well, why is there deserts then?
I think that's just part of a planetary ecosystem, right? Or I guess it wouldn't have to be. Not every planet has
Because
deserts.
he used proto matter.
Oh, the proto matter.
Yeah.
Proto matter.
Proto matter.
Makes sense now. Never mind. I retract my statement.
I guess
Right.
the Federation is making weapons of mass destruction, then, technically. And that's what the Klingons were afraid of.
Right.
So-
Klingons were right the entire time.
Yeah, so the Federation is doing bad
Oh, it
stuff.
ain't drinking what he's doing there, Andrew. Just so you know. Anyway, sorry.
Jeff, Andrew wants to know what you're drinking.
Oh, it's the here. I'll show him.
A trophy? No.
A triple bogey.
Triple
Bogey?
bogey.
Triple bogey amber.
Amber.
Very interesting.
Oh, there's Beth Mater.
Hey,
What is the Klingon?
what is the Klingon, or who is the Klingon?
What's his name? I think.
I believe she meant who.
Oh, I don't know. Who cares?
Well, it's just one of Christopher Lloyd's goons.
one of
He doesn't have a
No,
name.
no, even in the movie, who cares? Like, it's Christopher Lloyd is who he blames. He doesn't blame the guy who actually killed.
Oh, who was it? Who's
I love these
shoot the guy from Night Court?
Mom says she needs a whiskey.
Night Court.
So do-
Oh,
so
John
do we.
Larroquette.
John
So
Larroquette.
do
That wasn't the guy
we.
to kill, right?
Okay.
Was it John Larroquette?
John Larroquette is the only Klingon who lives in this movie. He's the one who survives. He's like, "I'll kill you later," and then he's like, "I lied." That's John Larroquette from Night Court and other things. And you know what? My mom cares
She
about
cares.
what the Klingon. It's a hit ordered by Christopher Lloyd Krug, but it's not by, like, a Klingon with a name.
Did
Mom.
someone say
So,
who cares?
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
did.
was-
I said because even the movie doesn't care. The movie doesn't
The
want you
movie
to
doesn't even care. They're like, well,
Yeah.
whatever.
care.
and
movie-
he was
That
going
the
to
best
kill.
scene in the entire movie.
He was going to kill Savick, and then
Right.
but David sacrifices himself in this heroic thing.
Well, and you're
right?
sitting there and you're like, okay, well, they call down to the planet and he's like, kill one of them. And you're like, Savick. And then he kills what's his name anyway. But the way he kills
He's
him is
going for Sabbath.
they have a tassel and then he kind of goes ugh, and just stabs him and then you just hear him go ugh, and that was the end of it.
Yeah, I was like, wasn't he going for Savick though? I thought,
Yeah, he
and,
was.
and David.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
David or
I
whatever
was
his name
okay
is.
David.
with either of them dying. I hate them both.
I was hoping he would wipe out all three of them and then we wouldn't even have to search for Spock.
Wait, then Spock would be dead too.
And
We just said we need him. That we're missing his presence in this movie.
We're missing a lot of things in this
Yeah,
movie.
but we get little
Like a point.
teenage stupid
Yeah,
Spock
like a
in this
plot.
movie.
That's good.
We get the teenage, like, he's going through Pond Far. He's like, Spock in this movie's a mess. I mean, he's like, he's like this, like little baby that's like growing up in the matter of days, and it's just like I don't know. This movie is so bad.
Well, and the best thing is when they first come across the, I like to call it a casket, but it's actually it's one of the torpedoes, right? That's been corroded.
Yeah.
And they come across the casket, and all those little, all the little organisms are there, all the little tiny things, and they're like, "Oh, look at those microorganisms." I'm like, "How the fuck are you seeing them then?"
No,
microorganisms.
no, they
They're not
were
microorganisms.
They were microorganisms, but Genesis grew them into big microorganisms.
I know. I just think it was a stupid
macroorganisms, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get a scene where we see Saavik and David and the Grissom. There's not much to say here other than because I think we can skip over this pretty quickly. But the ship itself, the Grissom, not my favorite starship design.
Also captained by a goober.
Captained by a guy.
Yeah.
Like he was given like who's the worst captain of the fleet? Let's give him the dumbest ship, the ugliest ship. And
you know how
David and
this guy's a
Saavik
prick.
on it.
The easiest way to tell that this guy was a prick, they gave it to you right away. You see him, he's sitting in his quarters, he's laying on his bed, and he's filing his nails.
No, that's the Excelsior captain.
Fuck you. Yeah,
That's the
the Excel.
Oh, you're talking about the other guy. Okay.
The other guy, the Grissom captain.
Oh, okay.
He was
I
also
talking about the Excelsior
they
captain.
were different douches.
There with his captain stick.
Yeah, because the Excelsior captain was hilarious, filing his nails and
Yeah, he's
all
like,
that.
he's like, wait, what? It's like, fuck off.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll pass on. But then we get it's the toast scene. I guess Picard's having a little funeral for Spock at his place. That tracksuit, Jody. If you can get a picture of Picard, of Kirk wearing that tracksuit for this scene, I would love it because
For which scene? Sorry,
the scene where Sarek shows up.
Oh yeah, the tracksuit like that one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
they were all wearing.
Oh my, that was not
yeah.
looking futuristic.
What about Sulu in his cape?
Oh, the cape.
Well, that's later. Yeah, the outfits that they end up in later, which they'll wear into Voyage Home, right? Yeah. Like they end up these clothes, I guess, that they wore for 3 months straight. I guess
that was Sulu. I don't know when he came out of the closet. Was he
much later? He didn't come out
much
to like
later?
the 90s.
Because he's married, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. But he wasn't married at that
one
point.
way or the other. Like the guy's wearing a cape. Like, come on.
Yeah,
I like the little thing that he was shooting the console out with. He shot the console, and then he shot the console like 20 more fucking times with this little phaser, and then he's like, boop, boop, and then that was the end of it. And he's like,
oh yeah,
and he walks away.
Because they didn't even use any phaser effects. They just did smoke, but there was no phaser. Okay.
Next week would be the answer to that question. When is Star Trek 4? I have a lot to say on this episode, and I have details on the show that will astound all the audience, says Beth Mader, who we think might
wait.
We actually might think that Beth Mader's Ted Mader, who's still logged into that account
she's
from
been
last
hijacked.
night. He's just on her laptop.
Yeah, fake news. That is fake news.
Yes, but that would be next week. Mom and or dad, whoever it is behind the keyboard. Yes, we'll be doing Star Trek 4 next week, which is one of my favorite Star Trek movies. So
You know what's infuriating about this movie is if I was alive in 1984 and I went to go see this movie based off the poster, and I go, "Oh, Leonard Nimoy's going to be in this movie," because his face is giant on the poster.
He's in the movie.
He is not in the movie, Dave. Come on,
he's in the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Has like 4 lines.
What sums this movie up perfectly is everybody. We keep getting off track because everybody wants to talk about any other movie than this movie.
And it's like, is that some kind of tennis twerking going on with Trump there?
Shake it.
Well, I had to give you a Trump reference.
Okay, but then it's like this little. Yeah, did you find that tracksuit with
I couldn't find it.
Oh my god, that was something else. But yeah, so I guess they're having a little toast for him, a little eulogy, and then Sarek shows up, and the whole idea, the whole mission that they're sort of like pushed upon in this movie is like, it throws me off because Sarek's basically making a statement that all Vulcans, when they know that they might be facing death, are going to try to mind meld with somebody and download their brain so that their knowledge carries over. Is that so, Jody? As a fan of Star Trek Enterprise, where I know that they touched a lot upon Katras and the Vulcan mysticism and this whole like this idea of like a consciousness being sort of transferred, because isn't Surax, who was like the Vulcan Jesus, for lack of a better term, wasn't his consciousness already like passed down through thousands of years, similar to what happened to Spock and McCoy? Because it's not consistent with every Vulcan character we've met in the history of Star Trek. Or any other.
Well, you got to remember though, when this movie came out in '84, there wasn't a lot of Star Trek back then. So
no, but
it's hard to say it wasn't canon, considering there was no canon.
And maybe it's because this movie isn't popular and they just never really brought that back in a big way. But like Sarek shows up, he's like, "Kirk, you dummy! What are you talking about?"
For something that's mystical and unproven.
Why did you leave his body on Genesis? You dope! Like, what were you doing? And Kirk's like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'd be the same as Kirk. Like, why would I know?" And he's like, "Spock never asked me to do anything or do anything."
Sarek's always been a prick. I don't know why everybody thinks like.
It's worth mentioning that they brought Mark Leonard back, who had not played. Who played his father in the original series. I think
he's also a Romulan too, right?
He played the Romulan on The Balance of Terror as well. Oh, yeah, it's been confirmed. This is Ted Mater, and he's listening attentively.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Those boomers, they just can't figure out how to log out of Facebook.
The Ted Mater.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, but I like that they brought Mark. I think it was smart that they brought Mark Leonard back, not for this scene in particular, even though this is sort of his comeback. But that Mark Leonard got to play the character a few more times after this. I think his scenes later in the movie are quite good. In like the Vulcan Hall, where he's sort of like he's like, in particular, there's a line like where it comes to my son, logic is uncertain, and he's where he kind of admits his failings, and then you kind of get this more human factor to Vulcans that Sarek brings into it later, while still staying true to being Vulcan. So props to Mark Leonard. I like that he's in this movie, and he kind of pushes Kirk off onto this quest, and Kirk's like, I'm not allowed to go there. Like, it's like politically like banned. I can't go there. He's like, you'll figure it out. Go. Right.
Mom and Dad, you're cracking me up over here, but if you have any questions, please send a question.
Comments are.
Well, at least he knows who
lighting. I don't know how it works.
At least he knows who Kevin is now, right?
Yeah, he knows he's not Sanchez. It's only because I put a name tag on him here, so that's why we have that. If we just changed it to Sanchez. But yeah, like later on, Sarek sees Kirk. He's like, "Yeah, thanks for bringing Spock back. You got your son killed and you lost your ship and your whole career's in the toilet." But
Sarek's kind of a dick.
Sarek is a dick.
He is a dick. Vulcans are dicks, kind of like pretty much anyway, aren't they?
Well, they've always been kind of dicks, yeah.
But Sarek's really a dick. I mean, Spock's kind of a nice guy. Sarek's, he's just an asshole. I mean, he's just, like he'll be polite about it, but
he's logical and judgy.
He's logical. He's way more judgy than Spock is. But
Spock's half human, so but like pure Vulcans are dicks.
Yeah, it's true. They've never
shown wrong.
Other than a half human like Spock, they've never really shown them in a good light.
Right. And I think what's also frustrating about this movie too is that Sarek shows up, and we kind of already know that it's McCoy who's got the Katra, or that Spock's mind is inside McCoy's, and so there's kind of this frustrating aspect of it where the audience knows more than the characters do, and we're waiting for these for Kirk and all the rest of them to catch up, and it's just it's taking a while, It's so I think that's part. I think why people also lament this movie, because what it adds to that boring factor. You're like, okay, let's just get the story going. We get the premise, and you spent like half an hour kind of.
Yeah, you want your heroes or whatever to be still smarter than you.
Even at the end of this movie, you're just waiting for it to end. It's again like Lord of the Rings and the frolicking on the bed and stuff. Like, it's just like, okay, can we move on from this?
And by the way, The Two Towers is the only good Lord of the Rings movie.
None of them are. Not one.
None of them are
all bad, and that's the worst
Two
one.
Towers,
and I haven't even watched the third one.
No, I
Battle.
Two Towers is the best.
I
movie.
hope Max isn't watching.
It's only because of the middle movie, but that's neither here nor there. This is a Star Trek podcast, but I had an argument on that one.
After Sarek pushes him on this quest, then like McCoy first tries to like hire a guy in a bar to like take him somewhere, and he talks like Yoda.
How soon is now?
Yeah, yeah. What does he say? How soon is now? How much is where? Right, and he's just like this weirdo
He's a
guy
Yoda
with
guy.
these ears and whatever. And McCoy says something like, I don't know. McCoy
Return of the Jedi come out.
Return of the Jedi is 1983. So it's the year before this came out. Yeah, so yeah, it would have been Wrath of Khan, then Return of the Jedi would have come out in between, and then the next year would have been this. There's a little movie history for you.
Somebody at the production lot's like, we need a Yoda.
Right. But like after he's on this quest, then he goes. Why does he make the plea to the admiral? I guess he has to try, right? He has to try to like go through official channels. And he asks the nicest head admiral guy ever, the guy with the mustache there,
Oh yeah.
the CMC. He's like, hey, can I borrow the Enterprise and go? He's like, no, you can't go. This is terrible time. What are you talking about, Dad?
When they're chasing, they're also making it out like when he steals the ship, they're making it like we've got to chase him right now. They know where he's going.
They can send the whole fleet after him.
Like, you know he's going to Genesis.
I get
That's what he
that
said.
they sabotaged Excelsior, right? Because this kind of kickstarts this whole heist section, right? And he gets away. I get how like the mechanics of how they got away, and because Scotty did this and whatever, and Uhura helped them with that. But I don't understand is like why did the rest of the fleet, the rest of the Starfleet would go? They know where they're going. To your point.
I think more importantly, this is the first time that there's been 2 ships near Earth.
We got a question here. The question is, in this whole heist spree that really kicks into gear during this part of the film, how does Uhura get away with locking that transporter guy in the closet? I think she just leaves him in the closet.
How did she get away with it? I don't understand the question.
She should have been court-martialed. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, how did she get to Vulcan?
Starfleet was like, it's fine.
Starfleet was like, Uhura, it's fine.
Let her get away with it. Yeah.
So annoying. The rest of Starfleet was like, he probably deserved it.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
he probably like
that
caught
preppy nerd guy.
caught a shuttle
preppy-
to Vulcan and left that guy in the
Dick
closet
guy?
and left a note to leave him out, let him out in the morning. So there's that. Would they break McCoy out of the little jail? Do people enjoy that whole sequence?
No.
Right, because
I
they
can't
said
think of any sequence I enjoyed in this movie.
because when Kirk shows up after they arrest McCoy because he tries to buy a ship or he tries to get a ship and then the feds like Federation security like busts him in the bar, right? And so they show up and then they go, we better hurry up, Admiral, with your visit. They're about to take him to the Federation Funny Farm. And I go, the Federation Funny Farm? Where is the Federation Funny Farm at?
Not only that, but these are the same dicks that somehow don't have security protocols in place to stop the Stardock doors opening.
How did they get those
they
open?
can track down some dude trying to just save his buddy, and now he's going to the Funny Farm. It's like, okay, whatever.
The Funny Farm, would that be a politically correct term?
Absolutely not.
No, it would not be, right? But 1984, maybe a little different.
He said something inappropriate as well.
They might as well have just said like short bus or something.
Well, they called Sulu tiny later on.
By the way, is Jane's mic actually on?
No, I turned it off because I opened a beverage.
I thought I saw
But
you
thanks,
on, but
thanks.
I couldn't hear your lovely voice, Jane.
Thank you. I didn't want you guys to hear my pouring.
no, it's good.
Can
It's
we
good.
can we get to the
Can we
We
get
only
to the
have-
end?
yeah, can we get to the part where the only part that's memorable in this movie is the when his son dies and when Kirk goes freaking apeshit on the bridge, and it is like, can we get to that scene because that's
We're almost there.
I
Well,
know.
let's just get there.
Well, here's the thing with this movie is everything leading up to that part of the movie is so bloody boring. It is so like
It takes almost an hour to do some Star Trekking. It's a Star Trek movie. Takes almost an hour to start moving.
It's like we're crushing Dave's soul here, and I'm not trying to like hurt you, Dave. I'm just trying to tell you how friggin' bad this movie is.
Well, I like when
we kind of covered most of what happened next, which is like the Excelsior sent after him is like that dick with the filing his nails guy. And did you see that guy? The actor is on the bridge of the Excelsior, Miguel Ferreira, who's like the cousin of George Clooney. He was in like RoboCop. He's been in a ton of stuff, but he's there anyway. That's neither here nor there. Basically we talked. Saavik gives David crap for using proto matter.
are we still at this part? Oh, we gotta.
Jeez, what else?
I'm with Jeff. I'm with Jeff. Okay.
To be clear, though, Jane, we're like an hour into an hour and 40-minute movie.
Yeah,
well,
like the
really. Do you want to not touch on the whole Saavik and Spock having sex thing?
Oh, I thought that was sex or was that hand kissing?
Fingering each other.
Fingering each other.
She was showing him the ropes.
Yeah.
Where was David? Where was David watching this? No, he's in Pond Far, man. He's like,
he's in horn bag mode.
He's in a chemical imbalance. If he doesn't get some, he's gonna die.
By the way, shouldn't he have went through like 10 Pond Vars by the time he becomes Nimoy?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, like later on, I'm thinking like because they like remember like Christopher Lloyd
Who's a regular old
won't beam him up with the rest of them right away, right? And it takes a while for them to beam. Kirk and Spock beam up together, right? So by the time they beam up, Spock has aged to Leonard Nimoy's age of this time. I was like, so if they beamed him up sooner, Spock would have had a younger body. That's what it would have happened.
Yeah. He would have been set where he was on the planet.
I guess you can blame
How
Christopher Lloyd for
convenient that it happened exactly the same age.
Should there be some sort of Benjamin Button kind of shit going on here? Like after he should be aging extremely fast, even off of Genesis.
No, it doesn't work that way. This is a science fiction show, not fantasy.
Oh, okay.
True. It's a distinction.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so where are we, Dave? Are we getting to this scene yet?
Near the end, hopefully.
Because
pretty much. Now the Enterprise shows up. They have the fight with the bird of prey. Well, first they figure out it's cloaked, and then they kind of get the drop on the Klingons, and then they hit them back, and the ship's not really. Why did they have to steal the Enterprise? They could have stolen any ship. Why steal the Enterprise? It was so
it's
beat
the only
up.
two that were there. They should have took the Excelsior.
He was trying to take the Grissom, but
he was expecting the Grissom to be there, right? Yeah.
Even Kirk says the Excelsior is like the sexier ship, like at one point, right? So like he would rather have taken that one, but they take the Enterprise. I think just because
that's their ship.
Convenience. Yeah, exactly.
They're familiar with it, all that. Yeah.
Because the Enterprise normally would have just totally destroyed that bird of prey. Like he would have completely outmatched it under normal circumstances, but because it was kind of beat up.
We don't know that. This is the first iteration of that ship. We don't know that.
Yeah, we do, because Christopher Lloyd says right in this episode, why don't they finish this off? They outgun us 10-1, right? And like there's
that's right. Yeah,
I
do remember that.
And the Enterprise is just it normally would beat up that ship, but they don't.
So why would the Klingons make a new ship that would be so?
Well, it's a
lame?
scout ship, and I get the impression that that crew, Christopher Lloyd, he's not working under the authority of the Klingon Empire. He's kind of a rogue lord. He's probably a member of the High Council. He's kind of doing this on his own and just has this little scout ship, and wasn't necessarily expecting to fight a big cruiser. Are we at that scene? Pretty much. Yeah, this is where after that fight, then he's like, I got 3 hostages on the planet. And and then he says, I'll kill one. And then Kirk's like, you killed my son. You damn Klingon bastards.
No. Like, let's get to the part where they actually kill his son.
Well, that just happened. That literally just happened.
That was lame.
Yeah, but like that's the only part of the movie where it seemed like they really took their time to shoot that part of the movie. With emphasis, with some sort of weight. I don't know, like just like everything, like. But what the hell was his son thinking, David, when he's in the fist fight with the Klingon, and then he just goes, "All right, I'm just gonna hug you now." What the hell was that? Who fights like that?
That is a terrible fight scene, and even for Star Trek, that's a terrible fight scene.
I didn't think that was a fight scene. I thought it was a reach around. God, looked like he wanted to really have some fun with them.
Right, but while David was fighting the one Klingon. And theoretically, Saavik could have fought the other Klingon who was there, right?
Mhm.
Right. But she doesn't. She could have, like,
No,
Spock could have
the
helped.
worst.
I think the young Spock would have had a better chance.
well, Spock doesn't have any mind, so he
Yeah,
can't
like,
do much of anything,
yeah.
right? But like she's okay. Vulcans are 3 times stronger than humans. Like obviously, Klingons are stronger than humans too.
Well,
But
she's half Vulcan, half Romulan, though.
but we know that for sure.
We don't know that from the movies, but it is canon.
It is
It's
canon,
in one of the books. Yeah.
but canons aren't books aren't canon.
I didn't think books
Whatever.
are canon. Star Trek books.
There are some books that are like come after, like that are
Star Wars books can be canon, but not Star Trek.
not Star
books.
Trek, not usually.
Yeah.
Some comic
Maybe
books.
It's so bad that now we're talking about books.
Oh, can we just get going here?
Well,
We have things to do.
in some versions, like Saavik was impregnated here by Spock and went on to have a kid.
Oh,
From
from this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Is that canon?
No,
Good,
it's not
we're
canon.
adding more to Spock's family.
Oh, it could be canon. I mean, they freaking.
More relative for Spock.
I know I'm talking about another series yet again here, Kevin, but they retconned Spock having a daughter or a sister? Was the one in Discovery? Michael Burnham.
Burnham, yeah.
A
Yeah.
sister.
Sister.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sister. Sorry. Yeah, like you can make anything up and just say it's canon. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, like
In the original series, Spock has no family other than his parents, and now he's got a brother and a sister,
and a potential son.
and a potential son. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, and Spock maybe has another kid because in some books there was an episode of the original series where they go back in time to like this caveman time or
Yeah.
something.
Oh yeah, with that
Yeah,
woman.
and he
in the
hooked up with that
ice
woman
and
there.
cold
So
and
there's
the-
in some books he's had a kid with her too. But
Right. And then there's the alternate universe in the movies where he's with the Uhura.
yeah,
All
right. The Zachary
We're burning
Quinto.
daylight here. Let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. So they kill David in a bad fight scene. Kirk's maybe acting. His reaction, your mileage may vary, and then
One way to say it.
after Kirk sort of composes himself after the shock of hearing about David's death. He quickly turns it around and he's like, okay, this is how I'm going to defeat Christopher Lloyd. And he's like, okay, I'll give you my ship because my ship's better, right? This is part of the thing is that I guess that Christopher Lloyd doesn't realize how beat up the Enterprise is, and he assumes that the Enterprise is a better ship to take over, and assumes that
Doesn't he have a viewer?
the
thing looks like shit.
a scanner. Like, look, the ship is like barely holding itself together.
Kirk can see a fucking cloaked ship through the viewfinder. I'm pretty sure he can see shit too.
Yeah,
Like, come on.
but his plan is okay. I'm going to beam down. Your people are going to beam over, but at the second they beam over, I'm going to blow the ship up. That's exactly what he does because he's like, "There's nobody here. Come out, Lord." And
I thought that was a
and
great
only the
scene.
computers are talking.
I love that scene.
You like that? Isn't that that's a fun scene, right? Where he
Yeah.
goes like, "Let me
Yeah,
hear."
that's fine.
Yeah.
They got way better in this movie at detecting life forms, though.
Mhm.
Now it blinks and it's a square and it says life form, rather
Yes.
than in the first movie where they couldn't see shit. Or
Yeah.
in Wrath of
Right.
Khan.
Scanning for life forms is very inconsistent. Sometimes they know exactly what's going on. Sometimes it's very vague. Right. But like, okay. And then, we see obviously the Enterprise blow up and then go crash into the atmosphere. Like, I still get moved by this
Yeah.
scene.
Oh yeah.
This is
that
the
had-
Enterprise.
that
This is
had a tear in
I
my eye.
know that the criticism is that they've done this way too much since this movie. We saw them do it to the Enterprise
This is the
D.
first time.
This was the very first time the Enterprise. This is the Enterprise that we knew from the original series, and this is the third time we've had it in a movie. And when we see it go, it's almost like that matters more than David dying, right?
It definitely
but-
does.
Yeah,
It does, but I didn't care about it either.
No. But
And I should have. That's the thing that pissed me off about this movie is you see the Enterprise get destroyed, and it's like you're like, okay, like, all right, when's this movie over? Like, it's brutal.
It had
Brutal.
an impact with me, Dave.
it
Did
did.
it?
Yeah, it did.
Well,
It did.
and Kirk goes, "My God, what have I done?" And
Yes.
McCoy, what you always do, turn death into a fighting chance for life, and
Oh yeah.
some good moments here. So
There's
once
good lines there. Yeah, the end of that movie is definitely better than the first half of the movie is terrible, and the second half of the movie is at least somewhat watchable. But
When they get trekking.
when they get trekking, yeah, and it gets a little bit more exciting, which is what a movie's supposed to be. A movie's not an episode of television, you know. Like this is what the problem they kind of made in this movie is that they made it too Star Trekky, and the fact that like they had them speaking Klingon pretty much the whole movie, like they were doing things that just were unnecessary, and you know that's my main criticism of this movie is stop it, like bring it back to being a movie, and they kind of do at the end, but I mean. It's so cringy that you can't say it's good.
Nothing really happens.
Well, so then Kirk shows up on the planet with his people, and he shoots that Klingon guard, who I think killed his son, right? That was the one who did it.
Sure.
And then we get this like sort of final confrontation with Christopher Lloyd and with Shatner, in Kruk and Kirk, which goes on for too long, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I've had enough of you, and then kicked him into it.
I'd had enough of him too. I was like, yeah, because literally, Kirk kicks him in the balls. Right at the end of that fight, and then he kicks him off into the lava, and that's it. Peace. See you later. And
when he falls down into the lava, it looks like he's actually falling sideways. It's so badly shot.
Yeah, kicks him right into Mordor.
Yeah, drops the ring or crew.
Maybe this is more like Lord of the Rings than we thought, and so. And so the only reason that Kirk is able to leave the planet is because he memorized that Klingon phrase that he heard earlier, where he's like, he asked John Larroquette to beam him up. And at this point, John Larroquette's character Malt had a gun on everybody else, right, up on the ship, because he's the only Klingon left. But when they beam up, they kind of like quickly take his gun and they get the drop on him, and then that's it.
And that's that.
And that's that. We're almost at the end.
Thank God.
Thank Jesus Christ.
It's even boring to talk about this movie. That's how terrible this movie is.
Basically, after that part, they show up back on Vulcan, and Uhura's back, and now they go into like the church, the Klingon temple, or the Vulcan temple, which I thought was a great looking set. Like that's probably one of the best things in this movie. Is like they go into this huge hall, and it looks amazing. And then
I think it's funny how they have no idea how to do anything though. They're like, Kirk's like, "Oh, I'm walking in." They're like, "No, you're not." And he's like, "Oh, okay."
Is that what happened?
I remember this. What do you mean you're not walking in?
They kind of like stopped them. Did you not see that?
Oh, like they wanted to go up to the altar?
Well, they wanted to like all hang out, and they're like, "No, you stay here."
They're not Vulcan.
Go get their business. That kind of thing.
And he's like, and then Sarek's like, "I seek Kalto Falika," and they do some weird Vulcan phrases back and forth. And
now, did you guys notice the women in white dresses? Dave noticed them.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I didn't notice them until Dave pointed them out.
I was just like, is it logical to wear those those little outfits? I just was asking.
They're a little bit see-through, I thought.
A little sheer.
They were sheer, but they weren't like, you didn't see anything.
Did you guys think it was interesting that when they bring up McCoy here and he goes, "I am Leonard, son of David," I was like, there's another David reference in this movie. That's amazing. Did anyone else get chills? No.
No.
Did
you notice?
I'm sorry. I think they use the word David so much because I think the Vulcans are kind of a metaphor for the Jews, right? Like,
yeah.
So I think that name is being used a lot in this movie for that reason.
Did you notice when she repeated it back to him? She didn't include that part though. She skipped over it.
Yeah, she's like, I forgot already.
Yeah, she just was like,
that's how we all feel about this movie. We forget it right after we watch it. We want to watch the next one right away.
Right. And then there's like, so they finally agree to it. They do like start the mind meld bridge thing. And then there's like this long period of waiting. Too long. It
was too long.
And Scotty's just looking around and everybody like, what the hell is going on?
Kirk just staring.
Because all the Vulcans have their eyes closed, but all the humans are like, I don't know. Like, are we supposed to like stay here?
It was too drawn out.
It's a little too drawn out. But then, it worked, and Spock is back. And then I do think that these final few scenes,
they were fantastic.
Were great. Like between Leonard Nimoy, he's like, you only have to act in one scene really in this movie. So really,
maybe because Nimoy's back, that's when it became good again, right? because I love this ending scene with my
Yeah, and he's like,
Jim.
your name is Jim. Your name is Jim. And he's starting to remember, right? And then we get this whole like quest in the next movie where he's not quite all there right away, at least, but he's able to, that he is sort of becoming himself again, and that the Spock we all know and love is back. And
I can summarize this entire movie with one moving image. Literally one moving image.
All right, let's see it.
Bring it up.
It is a slap in my face, and I don't know why I have to watch it.
Nah.
Because it's the third movie in the series, and we're doing all the movies.
It's brutal.
But next week, Voyage Home.
It's not brutal.
We'll
It's
be
a
back.
connector between 2 and 4, and it had to happen.
Okay, I feel like as we've always
didn't.
talked about,
They could have thought they put this at the beginning of Voyage Home.
the
Just to
the
pick
odds
it up, pick 'em up
are
and-
maybe the less good movies, and the evens are the better movies. So every other week, we sort of have a movie where we go, oh.
I don't know if we've always proven that though.
Well, I feel like so far we're kind of that pattern's showing.
I think Jeff probably summed this up exactly at the beginning of this podcast, which is this is a boring movie to watch. It really is.
It's a snooze fest.
It really is. Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand how the same guy that wrote this movie wrote the other two ones that are good. What happened?
Yeah.
What?
He learned how to write, I guess.
What happened is he wrote one movie and they stretched it into 3.
Maybe.
Well,
Yeah,
yes,
maybe.
but the third one they were like, let's make a comedy, and they did, and it was great.
Yeah.
This second one is taking itself way too seriously. I mean, it's just everything with it is just the scenes. There's so many longing shots on DeForest Kelly and Scotty while Kirk is going through some sort of an emotional reaction to something.
His son being murdered.
Yes, or that's
The
one
son
of
who
them.
he barely knows being murdered.
The other one is they know
Hang on, bastard.
they know he's upset because Spock died in the previous movie. It's just the whole movie is Shatner's upset. They're worried about Kirk, and then and the whole movie the audience is going, well, when's Spock coming back? This is boring.
And this is how bad William Shatner's acting is in that scene. Is his son died, and we're still like, he's overdoing it a little. Like, god damn.
I thought it was good. He leaned back. He tried to sit in the chair. He fell on the ground. I thought that was
Granted,
good.
like he
It was
didn't
believable.
raise him. He wasn't in his life or anything. But I think he's.
Can I ask you a question, Jane?
Yeah.
Were you intoxicated or under the influence when you watched this movie?
No.
No? Maybe you
No, we keep it a little more positive down here.
Completely sober.
I admire your positive attitude.
No, I do admit I was, compared to last week, I was surfing the internet. I was ordering dinner. At one point, Dave was like, Jamie,
Which was
like,
probably way more interesting than
So-
the movie itself.
I was a little distracted when I was watching this, but I am familiar with it. So it's got a very familiar Star Trek feeling to me. Maybe I saw it as a kid. So it feels like going home, but is it a great movie?
Like,
No,
much like
I'm in the.
with the motion picture. I don't like that movie, but there's things in it that I think added to Star Trek, and I think that the same is true with this movie. I think there's things in this movie, like the bird of prey, like the space dog, like it's more aesthetics and things like that.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm doing these things with you guys, I always like to look at what other people have said online and stuff, and just see how they kind of go into what I think.
Mhm.
And the best comment I could see was, this is the movie that literally will make people not watch Star Trek anymore. And it's like really? Because
But
they
they
got
did.
past one. If you can get past one, you're probably okay. But
Yeah,
still,
like I said, like it's
pretty brutal.
it's definitely not the best movie, but it's not a bad movie. It's just maybe not.
I would disagree with
All
that.
right, what do you mean it's not a bad movie? What is good about this movie? Everything about this movie is just it's like a rudderless ship.
It's hard to stay awake for the whole thing.
Oh, No,
I think it
there's
says
those-
something when most of you guys watched 4 right after because they needed something
Yeah.
to watch.
I need it's not just that. I need to feel better about Star Trek. This movie kind of ruined Star Trek for me in a lot of ways. It's like,
Well, that's one of the reviews I read was the guy was like, if you were on the fence on whether you wanted to continue watching Star Trek, this is the one that would fucking throw you right off the fence. Like it's brutal.
I've watched way worse Star Trek than this.
yeah.
Like easily.
Like what?
Like all of Discovery.
Like all of Discovery, most of Enterprise.
Enterprise was way better than this movie. You can go fuck yourself.
I will.
Because that's absolutely 100% wrong.
Yeah. It's you are absolutely wrong. But hey, we can agree to disagree.
That is true.
Any final thoughts on this movie? I think we're all ready for 4 by the sounds of it.
Yeah,
so
I need to go drink something.
Yeah. So let's if give you a chance to say your final thoughts, but then we'll wrap this up if everyone's good.
Okay, I'll give my final thought real quick. I'm watching the end of this movie right now, and there's literally a scene when you were talking about it earlier with Spock, where he's remembering who he is, and he literally spends about 2 minutes walking past the entire cast of the movie, not saying anything, just kind of looking at them. There's this is what the problem with this movie. Nothing happens.
Well, I think you also have to understand how movies used to be made and the way that they used to be paced is different than it is now, too. So when you watch a movie from 1984 or 1979 or whatever, it's not going to be like the more modern movies we grew up with.
I've watched lots of movies from that time period.
But the movie before this,
it does not hold up.
Wrath of Khan definitely. It hits notes way quicker than this movie.
True, but they wouldn't make Wrath of Khan like they did then.
But Spot just got his brain back, his soul back. Like he was processing it.
Into Darkness.
Into Darkness, which is basically Wrath of Khan.
Which is a terrible version.
It feels like they're wasting time. Kind of like what Kevin said, is that they had 2 stories and they could have fit it into one movie, but they were like, you know what, let's do it in a 2-parter. And that's what they did.
Why did it take an hour for them to get to Genesis?
Because it's a 2-hour movie.
It's not even 2 hours. It's an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was.
They didn't have enough story. That's kind of like really the.
There was no story. We got
the story is
what was already happening in the movie before it.
The story is guess what, everyone? Spock actually can come back to life, and these Klingons are involved, and they're trying to steal Genesis, and it's all going to come to a head, and that's kind of.
They should have called this Star Trek 3: The Search for Nimoy's Money, because that's what they should have done. This movie is terrible. It's just terrible.
Kevin, final thoughts? Do you want to add to that?
I don't know how you add to that. It's just bad.
Am I wrong?
Most of the movie, nothing happens, and when something does happen, you hate it. It sucks.
This is like the Blue's Clues of Star Trek. It's so fucking terribly boring.
It's not that bad. It's
not that bad.
Actually, that's Blue's Clues a bad fucking name. This is like watching Peppa Pig.
I know.
Terrible.
No, it's not that bad.
Salty and Pepper Pig. Here we go.
God, it's terrible.
It's Star Trek. It's
still a Star Trek story. It's got its
movie,
moments. It's not the best. It's by far not the worst.
I never want you to ever shit on Enterprise again if you think that this fucking movie is better than Enterprise.
It is better.
You are totally on crack.
Dave, Thor: The Dark World is also a Marvel movie, but that doesn't mean it's good.
Terrible movie.
It adds to the story. It adds to the story.
Yes.
We wouldn't know about the reality stone.
Thor to Dark. If you could compare this movie really well with Thor to Dark World, because they are very similar. They're the awful.
They're a functional part of the story. It had to happen, but it's not necessarily entertaining.
It didn't have to happen. That's the problem.
There were entertaining
Spock?
scenes. They stole
Spock
the
had to be brought back to life.
They blew up the Enterprise. Kirk kicked that guy. Like it was, and there was the
I've had enough of you.
Jane,
there was lots
I absolutely
happen.
love you, Jane, but I'm really sorry. You're absolutely not right here.
Well,
and it's just.
She has her opinion. She's allowed to like. They're both allowed.
No, that's fine. What I'm saying is your optimism even saved this movie.
I think we can say that we all pretty much agreed that Star Trek 1 was bad.
Yeah.
Here we have a split panel. So that's okay.
Oh, I'm not saying this is a good movie. I'm just saying
they did something in Star Trek 1 though.
What did they do?
A good movie.
Not much, but
I enjoy it.
This movie makes Kevin and Jody and me so much more angry because this movie should have been better.
this should have been way better.
Star Trek 1, I get it. It was the first time they were doing it. They had no idea what the hell they were doing. They make 2, okay, they made a pretty good movie. It's not amazing, but it's a pretty good movie. Then with 3, they just completely went down the other way. It's just like, and then it took them, we'll talk about 4 next week, but they understood that they had to switch up the path of the way they were making their movie to make it to keep it going on a good path. But you're allowed to like the movie, and real hardcore Star Trek fans will like the movie, but real hardcore Marvel fans like Thor: The Dark World too. It doesn't mean they're right about it being a good movie.
I don't think for the record, I don't think Thor: The Dark World's a good movie. I think it has to exist.
Yeah, I think you can agree it's not a good movie, but still enjoy a movie.
And don't get me wrong, you have your opinion, and that's fine. And you know what? If you guys enjoyed it, that's great. Okay, it's still supposed to be entertainment. That's what it is. But it's just, it's there's like a taste in my mouth.
Is it salty?
It's not even salty. It almost tastes like vomit. It's gross.
A little bit.
This should have been way better, as Jeff said. This should have been 100 times better. Like, easily. Even if this was half as good as Wrath of Khan, it would be acceptable. But it's just not even there. It's not even close.
It's not. Yeah, I agree.
It's almost like a flashback episode. It's terrible. And literally, it started that way.
Not a flashback.
They recycled like 2.5 minutes of the good movie.
Okay. Can we? I get you don't like it. It's not like the equivalent of the Riker clip show.
Like they have the first one. I despise this movie.
They have 5 different actors play Spock. 5.
Yeah, I guess he's aging. He's aging. He's on the Genesis planet.
5? Well, Spock, Leonard Nimoy.
Spock, age 9, age 13, age 17, age 25, and then Nimoy.
And then Nimoy. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. I want to thank you. I want to thank the panel. We haven't come to a consensus here. We agree that it's not the best Star Trek movie, and it's probably not the worst.
Hold on. Kevin, is it shit?
Yeah, it's shit.
Jeff, is it shit?
It's really bad. Yeah.
I say it's shit. That's 3-1. You're done. Or 3-2. We've concurred. This is shit.
All right. Thank you all so much for your contributions.
You've all been
Jody, fantastic. Make sure to subscribe to our Facebook page, everybody, and our YouTube channel. We also have an audio feed through Anchor. You can use that to subscribe to the audio version, however you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever. I'm on Twitter at Super Dave Mater. Jody's on there at That Jody.
Yep.
The other two don't care. And Jane, you're on Twitter, right?
Oh, no. I have an account.
I like how she said that. It's like, they won't let me on Twitter no more.
I would like to mention that I'll be doing a Deep Space Nine rewatch starting this week. Look out for that. We will be starting with season 1, episode 1. And if anybody is really a big fan of Deep Space Nine, reach out to us. And if you want to come on the show, we'll have you on, and we'll start recapping that soon.
Yeah, so we're probably starting that Tuesday, we're saying, right?
Yep.
So just a question on that. We're doing Emissary first, obviously the first episode of Deep Space Nine. Are we just doing it as like watch both the first and second part, or you want to split it up?
Watch the full first and second episode for the premiere. Why don't we do that?
Okay. All right. And any 2-parters that we deal with, we'll just watch both parts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we don't have to. It'll go a little faster that way.
Okay, great. Okay, so make sure to check out the Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch starting next week with season 1, episode 1 and 2. Make sure to check out our other channel, Super Mater Brothers Podcasting. We cover TV movies, not Star Trek related. We're currently in the middle of Westworld season 3, Survivor season 40, Winners at War. We had our Tiger King podcast we released a few weeks back. That was a lot of fun. That was a documentary series that dropped on Netflix. Got a lot of attention. And anything else you want us to cover, let us know. If you have a favorite show, make sure to leave a comment, send us a message. You can reach us. Have a great day and night, everybody. We'll catch you next week for Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. And stay safe, stay at home, and make sure to keep coming back for more. Live long and podcast on long life. I'm Dave Mater.
Oh, I'm Jane. Later.
Clockwise.
That's you, Kevin.
Kevin.
I'm the ever salty Jody Simpson.
And I'm Jeff Bader. How's that?
That works.
That is
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.